What's going on, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Jake and Joe Bengals preview show presented by First Star Logistics. The Bengals are 4-8, and here we are talking about a game with playoff implications. He's Joe Goodberry, I'm Jake Liscow, and we bring you the Jake and Joe preview show presented by First Star Logistics every week here on the First Star Logistics YouTube channel. Our fantastic partners in helping to bring you this awesome Bengals content twice a week, every week, starting with the preview show where we cover the biggest stories going on with the Bengals every week and get into the matchups with the Bengals opponent of the week this week, the Buffalo Bills, and getting to the post-game show where we have our awesome giveaways and our instant reactions to everything that happened in the game we just watched. And this week, the giveaway is going to another level. We've got a whole jukebox for you this week to give away on the post-game show. And just from a scheduling perspective, if you want to make sure you're there, and I know you want to make sure you're there, Joe, with the game in Buffalo, will be attending this football game. So we'll be a little bit later than normal. It will not be directly after the game. We'll make sure we remind you on social media as well. Probably an hour and a half after the game is where we're aiming to start this week for the post-game show. And as always, our partner, First Star Logistics, we love working with them. Maybe you will too. One of the fastest growing companies in Cincinnati is looking to expand its brokerage department by hiring people looking for a fast-paced career in the logistics industry. Visit firststarlogistics.com for details on how you can join the team, one of the top companies to work for in the Cincinnati area. And Joe, a lot of topics to get to today, starting from some Hall of Fame candidacies, from awards, the Pro Bowl voting results that we've got. We've got injury updates to get to. We've got the sustainability of this defense that has really played at a different level in the last 2 weeks, at least from a results perspective, than we've seen all year. And then, of course, we dive into the matchups as we do every week. But want to get started by shouting out Ken Anderson for once again making the Seniors Pro Football Hall of Fame finalist list. Hopefully this is the year for Ken Anderson, and Evan McPherson for winning the Special Teams Player of the Week award in the AFC, coming off of a 6 field goal performance against the Baltimore Ravens. And then you can get to Pro Bowl voting, Joe, which is a little bit disappointing for some guys that are deserving on this Bengals roster.
And that's par for the course when you're 4-8, right? And you spent the majority of the midseason winning 1 of 9 games, 1 of 10, and it's not a good look. And so, yeah, I think there's more guys that are worthy this year. Right now in the top 10 voting is Ja'Marr Chase, is Evan McPherson, and Charlie Jones is a return man, which I do think Charlie is worthy. I also think Ryan Rico at punter is worthy. I think DJ Turner for sure is worthy at corner. I think Chase Brown has a good argument at this point. The last 6 weeks, he's been fantastic. I did a deep dive on his numbers. He's pretty much top 5 in everything for running backs at this point. And, you know, I get it. I get why a bad team's not going to have too many representatives. I'm not saying that because I did have some comments when I was saying, like, you know, these are the 6 players I would vote for if it was me. I'm not the type that's going to go in and click every Bengal name. I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, all right, which guys are actually worth it? And I think, you know, at the very least, DJ Turner, Ja'Marr Chase should make it. But then you get to maybe Chase Brown, maybe Ryan Rico, maybe Evan McPherson, and Charlie Jones.
A lot of good running backs in the NFL this year is a tough thing for Chase Brown. I think he's one of those guys that, like, I guess they don't get as far down the alternates list as they used to when they played the game, when people opted out. Now that they're doing the flag football game and all the little mini games and stuff. But I think it might be a little bit tough for Chase Brown because the start of the season was so rough for him too, right? And so, like, when people are looking at the full season numbers, they're still not going to be good. The counting stats aren't very good because even though he's out snapping Samaje Perine by 20 snaps, he's splitting snaps with Samaje Perine 50-50 last week, and we'll see if that changes against the Bills.
The fantasy managers are probably still upset with Chase Brown for the first month of the season.
And who do you think is voting for the Pro Bowl?
Same
Joe?
people. Yeah. The fans.
Yeah, and a lot of those fans obviously very informed by the fantasy football experience. Evan McPherson, though, is a great shout. I think he has had a fantastic year, especially when you consider that One of his misses on a makeable field goal, right? Not a 60+ yard field goal. And he made a 60+ yard field goal this year, is the one where they didn't get the right ball on the field. And that's not his fault at all. And that ball didn't fly as well. I think it's time though for kickers to have an additional split. The traditional kicker stats: 0 to 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 plus. We got to do 50 to 59 and 60 plus now.
I
I think
agree.
it's time.
Yeah, I would like to see that. And while we're here, though, I just thought I should have shouted out one more guy that's deserving. Tyson Anderson has been a very good special teams player. PFF grades him as a top 5 special teamer as well. I would like to see that happen. I think he's very good.
Yeah, he is the Bengals special team ace and has lived up, I think, to that billing this year. He's been really good. Again, it's another one where it's pretty tough to crack that because there's only one. There's only one
Right.
special teamer, right? And a lot of times it goes to guys on the more high profile teams than the Bengals. But Tyson Anderson, you're right, absolutely worthy. I agree wholeheartedly about Jamar Chase, DJ Turner, Tyson Anderson, Evan McPherson. I have some reservations if you're really nitpicking about Chase Brown and Ryan Rico. I think this has been a pretty good year for some punters too. And Rico leads the NFL in
Net
raw
average.
punting average, but not net average. I don't think
Okay.
he leads in net average, but he is kicking the ball the farthest. Just a few too many touchbacks as he's kicking into the end zone and trying to pin teams inside the 10. That's it for me. But we're not going to spend too much time nitpicking punters here, Joe. Let's get to the injury situation this week. It's another week where Trey Hendrickson on Monday was declared doubtful by Zach Taylor. And as he is talking to the media on Wednesday, T. Higgins working through concussion protocol, making progress was the update from Zach Taylor. By the time people are listening to this, there's probably a couple days of injury reports out there that they know what's going on with T a little bit better. Getting T back makes a big difference, especially with Joe Burrow at quarterback. Trey Hendrickson continues not to practice and continues not to really get anything in the way of updates from Zach Taylor outside of cutting off questions with we'll take it week to week. Trey's going to be doubtful this week. Very exasperated tone from Zach Taylor talking about Trey Hendrickson has led to a lot of speculation, especially this week, about what's going on with Trey Hendrickson. We're going to acknowledge that that's happening. We don't really know more than you do, other than we also think it's kind of weird. And if you have any other thoughts there, Joe, you can chime in with them. But it's kind of weird, and he's not going to play this week. And it's another game where they really could use him.
Yeah, and it probably feels and sounds like to us from the outside that frustration could be bubbling. And I think everyone was. I'm sure Trey is frustrated as well. I'm sure the coaches are frustrated, ownership, fans, everyone's frustrated. You need one of your top 3 players on the roster available because you're hitting a stretch run here where the Bengals need to win games, and it would be nice to have Trey.
Everything's a must win the rest of the way. And this is the hardest game on paper the rest of the way. I think that there's probably going to be challenge with that second Baltimore game. Miami's been much better lately, and Cleveland is always annoying. And Myles Garrett's on pace for like 40 sacks this year. So that's its own challenge. But every game in the NFL is going to be tough. The Bills on paper, the toughest. The Bills still expected to be a contender. The Bills with Josh Allen still expected to be one of the teams in the AFC, even though their record is what it is at 8-4, the opposite of the Bengals. And they're 5.5 point favorites or something like that. Maybe that line is changing throughout the week. So maybe by the time people are listening to
If
this,
it
it's a
ends
little
at
bit different.
4.5 or so.
4.5 would be a 2-point move from the open. That would be.
Was it 6.5 to start?
I think it was 6.5 to
Wow.
open, and moved to 5.5 pretty quick. But
Probably depend on
another
T.
point.
Higgins and Deion Dawkins, right? And then Joey Bosa and figuring out what the injuries look like on the Bills side.
Yeah, the injuries are a big question here. So if Higgins plays, that's a nudge in the Bengals' direction. And then which tackles are going to play for Buffalo? And you obviously are pretty in tune with this, being there, Joe. What's the Buffalo injury situation this week?
Yeah, it sounds like Deion Dawkins, their left tackle, Pro Bowl left tackle, very good player, is in the same exact situation that T. Higgins is in. He's coming off of a Thursday night concussion versus the Texans, so he's getting 10 days to get back. And it sounds like he's going to go through the walkthrough on Wednesday in an effort to be cleared finally for Sunday. So it seems like a very similar timeline, and we will see if he's available. Because if not, Bills could be down both tackles because Spencer Brown, there was something wrong with his shoulder. If you watch that Texans game where they just got absolutely destroyed, he could not block and he could not lift that arm. And they like ruled him out the next Monday that he's going to miss some time. So I'm not expecting him to be back. And then Joey Bosa, who's been their best defensive end, very good signing. He's got 5 forced fumbles this year. He's been a good player for them. He looks like he's going to be out as well and could miss a couple weeks. So the Bills could be down pretty bad.
Bosa's the one that I'm circling. Like if you're down Spencer Brown, all right. We just saw them handle that. Okay. Like their passing game is a bit of a mess, and we'll get into that when we start to talk about the matchups that matter in this game. Their passing game was a mess a little bit against the Steelers, and the Steelers are threatening your edges significantly more. Really all along the trenches, they're a bigger problem for you in pass protection than the Bengals will be. And that's with all due respect to Joseph Osai and Miles Murphy and the run they've been on in the last few weeks as they're really stepping up a little bit in their expanded roles. They're still not at the level that the Steelers are challenging you with. And I know the Steelers have underachieved generally as a defense this year, but they have been better lately. The Bills were almost totally ineffective passing the ball. Josh Allen under immediate pressure, ball coming out quick, those kinds of things. And you get Deion Dawkins back. I think that goes a long way, especially with the disparate challenge levels between the Steelers and the Bengals. I do still have a lot of confidence in the Bengals corners in this game. Jalen Davis, now part of the 53-man roster officially. Those 3 guys have been playing pretty good football. Dax's penalty-heavy game a couple weeks ago notwithstanding. Feels pretty good about the corners right now, Joe, but Dalton Kincaid's back. If they understand, like, yeah, we can challenge these safeties, these linebackers, especially in space with James Cook, with our tight ends, like, that's what's concerning. And that's why, even though the defense has been better, and I know you've posted some EPA per play stuff this week, I'm still looking at those linebackers like, oh man, they're still so bad up the middle. They're still so vulnerable with those linebackers getting to the right place, with Geno Stone playing at a consistent level, because those things still haven't turned the corner. And I don't know if they will this year, even though there are some other pieces that we like. There's nothing that's like, Myles Garrett makes the job of these linebackers way easier because he's going to have 35 sacks this year or whatever.
Right.
Like there's some solid stuff happening on this Bengals defense, but they can still be exposed up the middle. And that's what's concerning for me when you talk about sustainability.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's part of the frustration of not having Trey back yet, or really not having an answer. Like it would be nice if they said in 2 weeks he'll be fine, right? If we got a report or something, because it would make that's the star of your defense that can make everything appear a little bit better. But for the Bills specifically, you're right. They couldn't pass protect last week. They also their offensive passing scheme has been a mess, and they're just keep trying to spam mesh on 3rd and 4th down, and it's just not working lately for them. Their receivers haven't stepped up for them in any way. Losing Dalton Kincaid for a few weeks, I think, has been a big miss for them. But they're a heavy 12, 22, 13 personnel team, which means they're going to have a lot of tight ends out there. And for the Bengals linebackers, for Barrett Carter, Demetrius Knight, means you need to come up and cover these guys, be aware of where they're at. They're going to have switch releases and crosses, and they're going to try and mess you up. And that's and that's the thing with mesh too. You better be able to run through that and not knock each other off, and leave a guy free running down the field because it's just tight routes. It's going to be a challenge for these 2 linebackers, these young linebackers. And the Bills, they're not going to show you a lot of crazy different stuff. I don't know if you've seen the memes and like the reviews of what they did against the Steelers there, where people are like, they basically ran one play 29 times. It was really inside zone and duos, 2 different things, but they did functionally do the same thing a lot and just mastered it and said, hey, we're going to give you a couple different looks. Tyrell Shavers, one wide receiver 14, will come in and block. It's almost like 13 personnel at that time, even if it's 2 tight ends. And they just spammed it on the Steelers, and James Cook just eventually kept breaking one off every 3 carries. And it ultimately is why they were allowed to run away with this game, because the passing offense was doing nothing for the Bills, and it hasn't for a couple of weeks now.
Well, it isn't the strength of the Bengals defense in the last couple of weeks. It has kind of been their run D for the most part, like against the Patriots, who had been figuring it out with Travion Henderson. Speaking of fantasy players, the toast of the town for fantasy players, and the Bengals did a good job there. They did a good job last week against, outside of the one big Derrick Henry run and the little touchdown misdirection toss play that everyone's running now to
they got him on that, whatever.
Keaton Mitchell. But they've been better on a play-to-play basis in the run game, really, despite the linebackers in some ways. And Barrett Carter, to his credit, has made some more plays in the run game. That was the difference for him last week. Like, a lot of the issues were still there, but he made a few plays too. And if you can take those splash plays with the mistakes, that's a step in the right direction. It's not the consistency that you're looking for, but it's a step in the right direction. And so if they can get some of those plays this week, that's something. But we'll see how that plays this week, because as I've mentioned elsewhere this week, I think this is the best run game the Bengals will have faced since the Chicago Bears. And the Bears, obviously one of the best running teams in the NFL, but the Bills offensive line, well coached, this running game, well coordinated. And it's not just the linebackers either. Maybe this is where we start to look at the James Cook runs from last week.
Yeah.
And the reason I think people will talk about this the same play 29 times or whatever it was the broadcast. I think Tony Romo said, yep, there's duo. And probably a little bit influenced by the broadcast there, but we can let this run. And while you watch it, while you listen to us talk, watch all these runs be like, all right, Joey Porter, make a tackle. And that's going to be Jalen Davis and DJ Turner this week, and Dax. But like, those are the two guys, Jalen Davis and DJ Turner, the undersized players. Really, all the Bengals corners could be considered a little bit smaller. But those are the guys that you look at here, and those are the guys that have to tackle this week. For as much as enthusiasm I have about these Bengals corners in coverage, they're going to need to play in run support this week too.
And there were 9 defenders in the box on that first play. It's the first play of the game, right? So maybe the Steelers aren't woken up yet, right? And you get one off. But there's everyone in the box. They got one deep safety slanted towards the one wide receiver on the field, which is Khalil Shakir.
And it's Joey Porter,
yeah,
who needs to defend the edge here. This is what we're talking about: corners and run support.
Yeah, and you're going to watch Jackson Hawes. Tyro Shaver's there at 14 if you saw him block. Hawes is a crazy blocking tight end. I believe he's number 85. They're manhandling them up front. That's Hawes one-on-one with TJ Watt, I believe, and just no problem. So it's going to be dangerous from that aspect. That means we're going to be putting pressure not just on the Jalen Davis or the boundary corners, but it's also going to be Miles Murphy, Joseph Osai, in playing your responsibility and staying where you're supposed to stay and not getting sucked inside and are not getting washed inside. There's highlighting Shavers here as he climbs up and gets to his linebacker, or is it a safety? Either way, this is going to be a challenge for the Bengals. Totally. I think we're going to see a 5-man front more the way we saw it against the Steelers and their heavy run, or heavy tight end offense. So that may help give you one-on-one matchups, but they really, coordination wise and run game scheme wise, is probably the best running team in the league. Because I think James Cook is a good back, but man, he looks potentially like, if he carries them through this month of December, could be offensive player of the year. I don't think he's too far off of that in those numbers. He got 1,200 and something yards already on the ground this year. So they will lean on him and just do it all day long if you let them.
I don't know if I'm quite to the best, but certainly among the elite. I think what the Bears are doing is pretty.
Oh, Ben Johnson. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah. But very, very good, regardless of any of that. And that's like without a significant Josh Allen running game against the Steelers. Like, there are a couple plays where Josh Allen takes it himself, but it's not a huge part of their running attack right now. Do you think that that's something? I mean, especially if it's a close game, right? Because the Bills, they have their history with the Bengals. They haven't been able to beat Joe Burrow. Do you think that you see a little bit more of like, all right, we're gonna have some option plays in here for Josh Allen. We're going to make these guys think and consider the quarterback threat too.
So I was looking up some numbers today that I thought were interesting. The Bengals, in terms of time of possession and controlling the clock, they burn the least amount of clock. So because they throw the ball a lot in the league. The Bills are on the opposite end of the spectrum. They burn the most clock and have the most time of possession in the league because they run the ball and they let it roll, and they run the ball and they let it roll, and they're high and easy completions, screens, a lot of screens to the receivers, a lot of stuff within 10 yards that are easy completions. So the Bengals have to score and then put the pressure on the Bills. And they've been able to do that in their matchups, which is why you get the Bills kind of out of their element and make Josh just drop back and be that thrower, especially with a poor offensive line right now in pass protection at tackle if their guys are out. So the onus is going to be on this Bengals offense. It's funny because both the Bills and Bengals run defense in terms of EPA success rate are bottom of the league. And the Bengals and the Bills are number 2 and 3 for EPA and success rate in the league for the rushing offense. So it sounds like both teams should want to run the ball and will and probably can. But who's going to have that? And it's funny, I'm thinking of it right now. Who's going to have that goblin mask saying throw the ball? And you go, who's going to give in? Is it Josh or is it Joe? Right. And I feel like Joe's going to listen to that goblin mask a little bit more
No
and say, you
doubt.
know what? I'm going to take this ball back on this RPO and we're going to flip this thing out, or we're going to throw
Yeah.
this thing, or I'm going to change it at the line. Because we saw last week, Josh was like, you know what? Passing offense isn't here today. Screw it. We will run this play 29 times and we're going to win with it. And I don't know if Joe has that in him.
Joe and Zach. I think that Joe
True.
is getting
You're
them
right.
out of a lot of the running plays, but yeah, you just don't see that dedication to the run. I mean, to be fair, if you're chucking off 15-yard runs every couple plays, it's a little bit easier to stick with the run game. If you're getting 5 or 6 and you're ending up in 3rd and 2 quite often, and you end up failing a couple of those 3rd and 2s, it's kind of easy to go away from the run game. And that was kind of the case for the Bills in the first half of that game. It was a close game. They were unable to really separate. They had the turnovers. Second half, different story. That they get the turnovers, they get the takeaways. Aaron Rodgers makes mistakes, and then the Bills are able to put the game away on the ground. That is a bit of a concern. Like, if you are down in the second half and the Bills can just really dedicate themselves to the run, probably not where you want to live if you're the Bengals. The strength of the Bills team right now, as it's constructed, is the heavier personnel groupings, like you said. What do you think though, Joe, about specifically the Josh Allen option game? Are we going to see them make the Bengals respect the quarterback part of this run game a little bit this week in the designed runs? Because it's not something that Buffalo does a lot of, but I wonder if that's a wrinkle that we could see.
So they do it when they feel like they need a drive or need a play, need a spark, right? So it's kind of like they'll be sloshing through the mud in 2 straight drives, and they're like, you know what, this is the Allen horse drive. We're just gonna ride him, and that's when you get the options, the power runs with him, and then it sets up nice plays where he can navigate the pocket then, and guys start getting sucked up, and he can throw over them, which is you're right on cue here. As you see, watch number 5, Jalen Ramsey, right? As Allen steps up here, watch Ramsey vacate his spot because they're so worried about Josh Allen potentially running this ball, especially in the red zone where he's got more rushing touchdowns than any quarterback in history now. And you leave a guy wide open. So you got to be disciplined. You got to understand that, yeah, he may run, but he will pull it back real quick and throw that ball too.
And his ability to reset here
Yeah.
off the pump before Cam Hayward, who's out of his mind in this game,
Right.
has an opportunity to hit him here. And to fit this, so I mean, you mentioned Jalen Ramsey is vacating his coverage responsibilities, but like, you're still fitting that in a pretty tight window
Yeah.
to Keon Coleman there. That's a heck of a play from Josh Allen. He still does have that playmaker in him. The first interception he threw was miserable. It's terrible, but I don't think that the Bengals are going to challenge Josh Allen in quite the way the Steelers did. Like, the Steelers' pressure early in that game, especially, was pretty relentless. Now, if you stop the run, different story. Maybe you can challenge Josh Allen a little bit different. I mean, Drake May is a frontrunner MVP candidate for a lot of people, which I don't personally know why he's such a clear-cut favorite when Matt Stafford is having the year
Wins. That's
Stafford is
it.
having.
Yeah.
But he did not play a very good game against the Cincinnati Bengals, especially early. Like, he settled in, he figured it out. But Drake May, for whatever reason, the Bengals got to him. And good for them, right? But can we see Al Golden put together that Lou Anarumo kind of game plan here to deal with Josh Allen? Because the Allen and the Bills did not have a ton of success against the Cincinnati Bengals with Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator. Obviously, a different set of personnel the last time these teams played a couple of years ago. But what kind of plan do they have to challenge Allen? That question is a question that we can only ask or see answered if they can deal with the run game.
Yeah, and it hasn't been the blitz that has gotten to Allen. It has been the rushing 4 and beat it the last couple of weeks. I'm thinking of the Texans game and the Steelers. You used to be able to confuse them and get them to hold the ball, especially with the drop 8 when Anarumo was pulling those strings. During that time, the last time we really played the Bills, and I wonder if you can call that card enough or play that card enough to get him 1 or 2 times. The Bills average over 1 fumble per game. Maybe that's the margins. The Bengals are still one of the least penalized and least penalized yards teams in the league. And the Bills are one of the more penalized teams. I think they're 19th, but their opponent is rarely penalized. 4 penalties per game, their opponents, which is less than what the Bengals average. So like this should be a clean game on that side for the Bengals. And maybe that's the margin. Maybe that's the difference. The 25 yards and penalty yards difference could do it. Maybe the one fumble could do it. But so I think we're looking at those type of things and looking for the advantages there. And that typically happens if you can get Allen to hold the ball, dance in the pocket. Maybe you can get him to drop it. Maybe you can get a big hit on him. The fumble in the 2023 game, the last time they played, was Dalton Kincaid, who was having a big game. They couldn't cover him as a rookie. And then the Bills are driving to try and get back in to make this a one-score game. And they flip Kincaid on a nice little hook, catch, and he turns around and the ball comes out, and that changes the game. So maybe we're looking at something like that again.
And a big injury question is Dalton Kincaid in that room of tight ends. We talked about some of the injuries earlier. Such a tight end dominant team. Like there's 3 tight ends on the Buffalo Bills that you would happily take on pretty much any team in the NFL. And Dawson Knox has had some big games, if I'm recalling correctly, or big plays against the Bengals. But
he can block, he can run. He just doesn't have great hands. So, I mean, like that's his only limiting factors. If he catches it, he's falling to the ground because he has to double catch everything.
Yeah. But you're really worried about the run game, first and foremost, right? You're worried about the run game. You're worried about Josh Allen's playmaking ability. If Dalton Kincaid plays, then that I think is probably a matchup that you're a little bit more worried about than others. Or maybe a little bit worried about Khalil Shakir and some of the playmaking ability there. Buffalo receivers are not very scary. And that's the one thing that you maybe feel okay about. Like maybe this is a game that Al Golden feels like he can play a bunch of man with his corners. And whether or not that helps, we'll see. But maybe this is a game where he feels confident in his corners and feels like he can do more with the safeties to help or whatever it is.
Or blitz more because he's confident in the back half,
And find ways that those blitzes can confuse. If he can find a way to, for the 3rd straight week, challenge another offensive line's protection rules, I'll be feeling pretty good about his ability to call blitzes the rest of the season. He's done it a couple of weeks now. My question is essentially, now that film is out, are our teams going to get a feel for the kind of blitzes Al Golden likes? Or is he able to continue to dial it up and get Joseph Osai a free rush, or Miles Murphy matched up on a tight end one-on-one, or a free rusher in the B gap because you've confused the opponent's protection? If you can do that again, I'll start to buy in to Al Golden turning the corner a little bit as a DC and still have the linebackers, unfortunately, under the microscope. But at least that will be a sign of progress for the defense. And I'm looking for signs of sustainability, right? Because they've had a couple of good weeks. They've been solid offenses that they've dealt with the last couple of weeks.
For sure.
The Ravens in a little bit of turmoil this year. But another big test this week as we continue to look for, like, is this defense for real not gonna, like, and by for real I mean like a bottom
10
20
instead of
bottom 10,
historically the worst of all time.
Yeah, I mean it's a low bar that we're talking about here, but that's what you need to give this team a chance. The way that this offense can go, the way the offense is going in the second half, if Joe Burrow has indeed already knocked the rust off.
Yeah, you're right. Can they do that? I think the blitz calls haven't been exotic. I think he's mixing them up enough to keep offenses guessing. Like he showed the same looks 3 times, dropped out one time, sent it the other time, and then sent one half and dropped the other half out the next time. And I'm like, great. They can, like, you can do all the changes to your protection rules that you need to in game. If he changes from the exact same look, who is actually coming? I mean, there's nothing you can do to defend that other than to keep extra blockers in and limit how many receivers are in routes, which just helps your defense, unless the quarterback can break the pocket and make a play happen, which is, second reaction is going to be big in this game for both quarterbacks, which that is 2 of their superpowers. That is what they do really, really well and what separates them, Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. And I thought Burrow did it well last week. Good to see him moving without really any limitation in that foot. You wouldn't have known, other than the throwing rust, that he just missed 10 weeks. Or had surgery on his toe. So that's probably when it's going to come down to. The Bills are a little more stagnant on their defense, not going to mix it up as much, but they will call a blitz here or there when they feel like they can get something. So that'll be interesting as well. The Bengals coming off one of their best pass protection games in a long time. PFF said it was their highest pass protection grade since 2016 versus the Miami Dolphins.
I was going to say for sure in the Joe Burrow era, right? Like they haven't had a game like
Never,
that.
Yeah.
In the Joe Burrow era. And the Ravens, not a great pass rushing team, but yeah.
What are the Bills without Bosa, right? I mean,
No.
they've had to play TJ Sanders at defensive end. They are down right now.
But Deion Walker could make a play in this game.
For
You know,
sure.
that'll be an interesting matchup to watch. Greg Rousseau is still a good player on the other
That's a great
end,
matchup. Yeah.
and not necessarily the havoc creator that Bosa is in terms of immediately winning. But if Bosa's playing, then we're like a little bit more concerned about the tackles because they've been good lately, but Joey Bosa is having a bit of a renaissance season. He hasn't been good since like 2021 on a
Mhm.
consistent basis. And it's turned back the clock a little bit this year. So that's obviously going to be a very big injury to watch. Sounds like he will be playing hurt, even if he does play. And the expectation is not necessarily that he will, but something that you probably have more current information on as a viewer of this show than we do as we are recording it. So going back to the blitz comment, the last thing I have there, showing the same look and coming with different pressures out of those looks is what the good DCs do. And
Yeah.
they find a way to push the right buttons at the right time. So they have calls built in where their defensive players are smart enough to recognize, like, okay, this is how they're protecting. These are the adjustments we need to make. And think about Roquan Smith last week. Joe Burrow checks, Roquan Smith checks. And that's a product of familiarity, I think, between the Ravens and the Bengals. But when you have guys that are that intelligent on defense, finding ways to communicate like those little checks when you see the protection plan that the offense is putting in front of you, that's where you can dial up some of these blitzes. And I'm pretty sure we saw that Flores style rain pressure. I think we mentioned this in the postgame show where you saw some guys dropping out when they realized what the protection was, and other guys continued on their blitz path. When you can start to make those adjustments, you can start to do some pretty cool things. And that's a lot of like the Brian Flores blitzes. I think Mike McDonald did some of this with the Ravens before he left to Seattle. But you can start to really challenge protection rules with some of those pressures that adjust after the snap, where you
Yeah.
have guys dropping out of the blitz after the snap based on the protection. Once those offensive linemen have committed to blocking them, then they can drop out into some of those short passing windows. Requires a little bit more, I think, from the players, but we have seen that a little bit from the Bengals, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to just challenge the offensive line, right? It can make the quarterbacks
Right.
a little sketchy in the pocket. And I think they did that with May on a couple of his throws where he just wasn't completely sure. The timing sped him up a little bit. And then obviously with Lamar, he really struggled with it and couldn't hit routine. Like, there was a slant late in the game. He just airmails it. There's no one there. And I don't know if you remember, but Mark Andrews has three defensive backs I think are going to blitz on the play unless Andrews goes out into his route. One of them is supposed to stay with him. No one stays with Andrews. So he turns real fast, clapping to Lamar. Lamar doesn't see him and just, oh, I'm sorry, almost swore there. Just laser this thing nowhere. If the quarterback can stay under cool and take a step back, buy an extra second, and flip it to the guy he needs to, you can find a guy open because the defense can have a mistake on those plays.
Yeah. Challenging the quarterback, obviously, part of this thing too. And like you said, Josh Allen this year, the blitz has not been what's gotten him. So we'll see if that's the case or not. And really what's interesting is, and we'll move on to the offense here now, is how much of it's zero pressures that are working for Al Golden. It's not like necessarily the 5-man rushes, it's those zero pressure looks where it looks like everybody is going to blitz and then finding ways to get creative off of that. But when the Bengals have the ball, Joe, big difference if T. Higgins plays this week,
For sure.
obviously. Christian Benford has been more of himself and kind of the player that deserved that extension in the last few weeks. But I'm looking at, obviously, we've talked a lot about running the ball in this game and challenging the Bills up the middle where, yeah, you've got Daquan Jones, more of a pass rusher, solid player. You've got Deion Walker, the rookie. But without Joey Bosa, Matt Milano, not who he was. These corners not great in the run game outside of Christian Benford, who is elite in the run game. Can you run the ball successfully? Can you commit to Chase Brown a little bit more? But then like the Higgins Chase matchup with these corners and the Burrow matchup with this defense. Burrow has been really good against Buffalo
He
every
has.
time they've played.
And the last game was that Sunday Night Football game in 2023, week 9, I want to say, where I think the Bills tried to take Jamar out more in that game. And what it ended up being was a tight end heavy. Irv Smith caught a touchdown. Drew Sample rambled for a touchdown off a check down. Tanner Hudson caught a bunch of balls, the most he caught to that point in his career. I think he had like 4 catches up to that game, and he ended up having a big game. But T. Higgins was the dude. And it was just comeback routes, being stronger, holding that ball out away from the DB. I mean, it just looked like Shaq out there, right? And I think you can still have that. There's still a lot of familiarity between what's left of these rosters 2 years later. And I think T could still have that type of impact. I think they would have scored 40 last week if T's out there. And, it can't be understated because T doesn't stop his route where Mitch Tinsley does, right? He's not the one getting confused on that play the way Tinsley does. Joe's trying to confuse the corner, not you, Mitch. Keep running. And, I kind of understood it once I watched the tape of what happened. But T makes a big difference there. And I think this passing offense, it, again, is what's going to carry this offense to where they need to be. But at the same time, the run game is there. It's working this year. It's successful. It's been successful in short yardage. I don't know if you saw that chart. Chase Brown, I think it was second or third in terms of short yardage success rate for running back ones. Excuse me while I try to spit that out. And they need to lean on it and not just on 2nd and 10s because those are killing them and putting them in third and manageable, but third down is not where you want to be in today's NFL.
Yeah. And we'll see how those 2nd down and 10 runs look this week. Something that drives both of us crazy. If you're following us on game days on social media, you'll see Joe and I probably both in sync talking about 2nd and 10 runs when they happen. I mean, it's fine when it works, when you get 9 yards on a 2nd and 10. Okay, great. Like that's great. But a lot of times you don't. I just wanted to look again quickly at this Mitch Tinsley play where he did not finish the route just because it's actually just as you're talking about it, it's pretty interesting, right? And
it is.
So it's interesting because of where Joe Burrow pulls the pin. Like Burrow's throwing this go to this receiver where Marlon Humphrey is like 3 yards on top of him. What the heck does Joe Burrow see here to throw this ball? Well, he must see Marlon Humphrey's eyes.
Yep.
You go back to the beginning of the play.
That's chasing the slot.
You really watch Marlon Humphrey. Like Marlon Humphrey is he's backpedaling, sure, but look at where his body is pointing. He's like, I'm gonna trap this Jamar Chase outbreaker. That's where they're trying to go here. I've seen this team a ton. I know how they're trying to attack me here. This is just cover 3, pretty sure.
Yeah. If you pause it right when Burrow hands separate to go throw the ball, so give him a couple more frames here.
That was the first pause, but I'm still watching Marlon Humphrey. Like, look at Marlon Humphrey's eyes. Still staring down this pathway, looking at the quarterback, looking at Jamar. He sees Joe Burrow's looking at Jamar here. And right here, Joe's hand comes off the ball. This is what I'm talking about. Like, Humphrey's still bailing. But Joe sees something in the body language from Marlon Humphrey here that says he's gonna cheat.
He's
gonna come off of this vertical. And we go
right there.
Ball's out now.
Yep.
And Marlon Humphrey has totally stopped running.
This is after they've hit that out route to Jamar a couple times in this game. He's got to be thinking like, I'm going to get this one. I'm going to get one. They're not going to throw to Mitch Tinsley. Why would they throw to Tinsley? Who is Mitch Tinsley?
Yeah.
And Mitch Tinsley's had the same questions.
Well, Mitch Tinsley here, let's watch where Mitch stops running this route too, right? He's like, oh.
Right. When Humphrey does that, he has to assume the ball's coming to Jamar.
That's definitely the assumption. Also, he's assuming there's no way this ball's going to me. Look at the ball's got to be out by now is one thing that he's thinking about. Marlon's coming off, so ball's probably going to Jamar. And also, Marlon Humphrey's 3 yards on top of him. Why in the heck would this ever be a go ball?
Yeah.
And then, oh shit, the ball's in the air. Oh no. Oh, a little bit out of my reach. Anyway.
I wouldn't be shocked if Tinsley runs the rest of his routes looking for the ball every single time now. He seems like the type to be like, I can't let that happen again.
He's definitely that kind of player. But in this game, then you got Christian Benford out there. What do the Bills like to do from a coverage perspective in their secondary? From how are they going to challenge these Bengals receivers?
Yeah, so they're not going to shadow too much. It's going to be a lot of quarters, and it's going to be a lot of quarters match. And Benford is probably the least athletic corner number 1 that's really good. And you see the technique there. You'll see him start to understand where the routes are going and kind of start shading in there. He must do a lot of film prep, be really smart, good enough agility, good enough physicality to where he can take away whatever he thinks that initial route is supposed to be. Where you get him is when things break down and you have to, and guys start creating outside of it because he's taking away what he believes is that initial route called in the play. Like right there, he's jumping inside. He's ready for it. You got to beat him on second reaction stuff.
How much man do you think the Bills play this week? Because this is a cut up of all of Christian Benford's man
And it's like
snaps
5
against the
snaps.
Steelers.
Yeah, they don't do it a ton unless it's like a match situation where they get into, quarters can look like man a lot of ways too.
Yeah,
Like I think that is there. And
yeah.
so I don't know. Against the Bengals receivers, we don't see a ton of man anyways. So I wouldn't be shocked if it's a very minimal amount.
Do you think this is one of those games where they try to double T and dedicate their top resource to Jamar? Do you think this is going to be another double week from the Bills?
I bet it's if T plays, I feel like this will be a week where the Bengals try to put them on the same side together and stress those quarters rules and who you're covering, and you get high-low stuff, and they just attack it that way because it limits how you can double both of them. And we've only seen glimpses of it because the Bengals have been shut down by the double stuff, but I can't remember a lot of Bills defense doing that. So I don't expect to see it a ton, and maybe that's where the advantage is, or maybe McDermott has learned from the years of not being able to cover these guys and not being able to slow down Joe Burrow, that maybe they got to do something a little different.
I feel like it's tough because there's not a lot of film out on Burrow this year.
Yeah.
For McDermott, but you go back to the Steelers, the way that they really took away those outside receivers with Joe Flacco at quarterback. And I feel like that's got to be tempting for opposing defensive game planners. The other thing to mention here in this defense is Shaq Thompson's playing awesome football
Yes.
at linebacker at 32 years old for the Buffalo Bills. And Cole Bishop in his second year at safety has emerged as one of the better cover safeties in
Shout
the
out to the
NFL.
spreadsheet. The draft spreadsheet was right on
Yeah.
that one.
Jordan Poyer on the other side hasn't been so good. Matt Milano is one of the few linebackers in the NFL to have a PFF grade lower than Barrett Carter. This year, he's actually 83rd
I
out of
think he's
84.
been better lately, though, if you have that up. It feels like he has at least.
I don't. He's still tackling relatively well. At least he did last week, and maybe that's
Can
part
we
of the
talk
bump
about
for
that
him.
too while you pull it up? The Bills tackling is worse than the Bengals, according to PFF this year. There's only 4 teams below them, and a percentage-wise, they are definitely worse than the Bengals in missed tackles.
Milano, according to PFF anyway, hasn't really been
Okay.
significantly better in recent weeks. Yeah, the Bills are one of the couple teams in the NFL with a lower tackling grade overall as a team than the Bengals. However, in their last 2 weeks, they've of course been much better tackling. And so most of their poor tackling performances are week 10 and earlier. It was really bad against the Dolphins in week 10, really bad in week 8, week 6, week 4, and week 3. Outside of that, it's been reasonable or even good. We'll see what version we get of the Bills this week. Obviously, the Bengals have some guys in Jamar Chase and the running backs that are hard to tackle. Who do you think the biggest key is in this game for the Bengals offense? Like what's the matchup on offense? Say this is the defense is turns into a pumpkin a little bit because of Greg Cook, or not Greg Cook, because of James Cook and
Shout out to Greg
and
Cook.
Josh Allen. Shout out Greg Cook. Because of James Cook and Josh Allen. And you need to score a lot of points. Is this a Burrow Higgins chase? Is this Chase Brown? What's driving the offense the most in terms of the matchup that you think is most advantageous to the Bengals?
If you go by the numbers, the running game should be the one, and maybe the Bengals should lean on a little bit more, find a way to get Chase Brown the ball just a little bit more, maybe earlier in the game. But if it comes down to it, and they have to drive and they have to go down there, it's Burrow, it's Chase, it's Higgins. And we haven't had a Chase game in a while, it feels like. He quietly had one versus the Ravens. It's funny because he dominates the Ravens, so even getting 110 yards or whatever it was felt quiet. But, one of those big games and explosive games, that feels like it could happen. When he catches the ball, he's going to look like the most athletic player on the field versus this Bills defense that isn't the fastest. I mean, Cole Bishop is, but the rest of the guys are not. And we'll see if Maxwell Harrison, how much he plays. But Trey White can't move. Christian Benford can't move. When Jordan Poyer plays, he can't move. Matt Milano can't move anymore. It's interesting because they are a slow defense, although they're quality in most areas.
Get me some slants this week. Get me some Dagger. Have we seen Dagger? Have we talked about Dagger a single time this year? I'm sure we've seen it
a couple times, but not the way they spammed it before. I don't think they cover 2 as much.
You don't think they're getting cover 2 as much? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true. Joe Burrow figured out how to beat cover 2 quite a bit.
Right, you
But the
can't keep playing
backside
it.
the backside dig has been there for them, and Joe Burrow threw that backside dig a couple times last week. You get the receivers coming over the middle in a vacancy in a zone in a little bit of space, and potentially off to the races. I mean, how many times have we seen? I mean, T. Higgins is doing it this year. We've seen Jamar do it countless times. We've seen Chase Brown get into space. Getting these guys into space, giving them the ability to run after the catch this week is a challenge, I think, for Zach Taylor because of those athletic disparities that you're talking about. And that's exciting. And without Joey Bosa, I have reasonably high expectations for the Bengals offensive line this week in protection after
Yeah.
what they did last week, right?
Yeah, that'd be great, right? If we can do it 2 weeks in a row, have good performances on the offensive line, and it sounds like, it feels like at least, Dalton Reisner should continue to play at right guard. I think they're happy with what was going on. Plus, there was a lot of communication there, and it should have probably always been happening. But you know what? If you can get Jalen Rivers some snaps while your franchise quarterback isn't in there, I get it too.
They cannot make that change. Like it's got to
No, I know.
continue to be Reisner. That would
But that's
be
5 solid linemen. Fairchild's been really good since he came back from injury.
Yeah, I think we can be pretty pleased with what Scott Peters has done generally with
Yes.
this unit, showing significant progress and in some ways linear progress in many ways as they're figuring things out and making adjustments as the year goes on. It's going to be a fun one, Joe. You'll be at the game, of course. So the reminder, if you missed it at the beginning, that the post-game show will be a little bit later this week. We'll be giving away a jukebox, though, so you're not going to want to miss it. I mean, it's a whole jukebox.
It's
We're talking,
nice.
I mean, where are you going to get a jukebox except on the Jake and Joe Bengals post-game show presented by First Star Logistics? Make sure you're here with us then. And if you're looking for work in the Cincinnati area, First Star Logistics is a great partner for us, one of the fastest growing companies in Cincinnati, looking to expand its brokerage department by hiring you if you're looking for a fast-paced career in the logistics industry. Check out firststarlogistics.com for details on how to join the team at one of the top companies to work for in the Cincinnati area. And thank you for checking out this episode of the Jake and Joe Bengals preview show presented by First Star Logistics. We'll see you on the post-game show.